All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. And in this video, we're going to be in the 135-pound division, where three things are going to be true for sure. One is death. Two is that they're going to pay taxes. And number three is that today somebody beat up Gervonta Davis in sparring. Let's talk about that and the new information that has come out about Gervonta Davis and his disastrous skills in sparring in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 135-pound division. I woke up this morning paying attention to the boxing news, and who do I run into? I run into one of my best YouTube friends, the great Southpaw TV. Southpaw TV on his channel had an interview, and in that interview, Floyd Schofield Jr. and Elijah Peirce answered a series of questions from Southpaw. And I was not surprised at all to find out that once again, Gervonta Davis had been beaten up in sparring. This time, both Floyd Schofield Jr. and Elijah Peirce both attest to the fact that Gervonta Davis is really overrated. He's really not the boogeyman people think. And then if they just get a chance to get in the ring with him, they will show what exactly they would do to Gervonta Davis in the ring, and they would do the same thing that they did in sparring. Now, here's the only problem. Sparring doesn't really mean all of that. Sparring is an opportunity for a fighter to work on something that they need to improve in. Sometimes you have one guy that is prepared to fight, that he's in fighting shape, and you have another guy that is not in fighting shape. You may have a guy that just has a good day, a guy that has a bad day. You could have a gym fighter, somebody that is just very, very terrific in the gym, but when they get in front of those lights, something else happens. We've all had that experience in sports, seeing somebody on a team that if you see them in practice, you're like, man, they're not all that good. But when they get in the actual game, you're like, wow, they really show out in the game. Or you see somebody that is very, very good in practice, and then they get into the game, and then you're like, hold on, man, these guys aren't what they were in practice. Like, yeah, they're practice warriors. They're practice killers. So sparring really doesn't mean anything because there's no pressure for it. Sparring, you're not going into sparring with your trainers having prepared you specifically for months to fight that fighter in sparring. You have somebody in sparring that is preparing to fight somebody else, and oftentimes the people that they're sparring are performing in a fashion to help mimic the person that say a Gervonta Davis would be training to fight. Now, of course, there is, real, gym wars that go on. There are real battles that go on in sparring. Also, there are times in sparring where somebody can discover, hey, man, yeah, this guy that I'm sparring really, really is like that. One of the examples is when Terrence Crawford was sparring a champion, Tim Bradley, early in his career. And he's like, yeah, this guy's really, really going to be like that. Whether or not Elijah Peirce is that, I mean, I don't think he is. Probably not. And that's because he said that he sparred Gervonta Davis 10 years ago. 10 years ago is 2014. That's several years before Gervonta Davis became a champion. I don't know, man. I just don't. The most of what I've heard about Elijah Peirce have been sparring stories. So I just don't know, man. And now, Floyd Schofield, that's a little bit of a different animal, because Floyd Schofield Jr. is actually number 2 or number 3 in the WBA at 135, which means he's in position to become the mandatory challenger for Gervonta Davis if he is so inclined to do so. And see, that's something that they can do. Stay in that weight class, wait next to Gervonta Davis, and then we can see whether or not Floyd Schofield Jr. can do what Floyd Schofield Sr. and Jr. say that they can do to Gervonta in an actual fight. My thought is that they will probably not be willing to take that fight at this stage, or at least, let me rephrase, Oscar De La Hoya may not be willing to throw Floyd Schofield Jr. To the wolves at this stage in his career to go at Gervonta Davis. Not saying that Floyd Schofield Jr. won't eventually be one of the top lightweights. He very well may be. Just like Shushu Carrington eventually will be one of the best 126 pounders in the world. But I don't know really if Shushu Carrington is going to be able to beat say Steve Fulton Jr., who came up from 122 to 126. Like, there is some real seasoning difference between Shushu Carrington and Steve Fulton Jr. And is probably going to be the same thing with Floyd Schofield Jr. and Gervonta Davis. However, hey, man, it seems like this thing could very well happen if Gervonta Davis does not leave that weight class. I doubt very much that Gervonta would have a problem fighting Floyd Schofield if it was his mandatory challenger. I just don't think that those guys are really going to want to take that. There's also that very funny situation that they have going on over there with Turkey Al-Sheikh and DAZN and Matchroom and Golden Boy. I do believe that Floyd Schofield is a Matchroom fighter. Still have that funny thing going on where they're kind of making cards over in Riyadh and in Saudi Arabia. Maybe he'll wind up there in Saudi Arabia, but if he doesn't, then that fight should be open to be made. I hope and really, truly, truly hope that they make that fight. But the sparring stories, look, I mean, I don't want to say I've had enough of them. They're fun, especially if you get to actually see the sparring, but the ones that are not, that have not been recorded, I mean, what can you really do with that? But again, like I said, this is not the first person to do this. Devin Haney's done it. Brian Norman Jr.'s done it. Devin Haney has done it. Now you have, make sure I didn't do that. Brian Norman's done it. Elijah Peirce has done it. Floyd Schofield Jr. has done it. It's just over and over and over again, this idea that, hey, man, we can really get our name out there if we keep talking and saying, Tank ain't this big, bad boogeyman. And he may not be that big, bad boogeyman to the people that are, that are sparring him. But to the rest of the boxing world, man, that's just sparring. Nobody gets to see it. Nobody gets to see it. And on top of it, you're talking about guys, especially in Elijah Peirce, who I do believe is much bigger than Gervonta. Same way that Brian Norman Jr. is much bigger than Gervonta. I haven't really heard a lot of fighters smaller than him saying that. But this back and forth has been going on for years, for the time of Tevin Farmer and all of the issues around the Philadelphia fighter Tevin Farmer, who was the IBF 130-pound champion, while Gervonta Davis was the WBA 130-pound champion. This has been constant ever since. Floyd gets it. I don't know if Terrence Crawford, I think Terrence Crawford has got a little bit, but it is what it is. It's a fun conversation. It's always interesting to find out and know what's kind of going on behind the scenes when these fighters are preparing for a major fight. But that's all it is. And I wouldn't hold my breath waiting on Elijah Peirce or Floyd Schofield Jr. to do anything to Gervonta Davis. But that's my take on the matter. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peirce. Peace. I said Peirce. Peace. Like Elijah. Peace.